Hey there, fellow neurodivergents. I'm Brett, the Audi boss. Today we're going to take on a challenge that many of us face. How do we get started doing something when our brains resist? Whether it's a task we find boring or something we genuinely want to do, sometimes our minds can just put in certain barriers that stop us from getting started or just doing the thing. So that's what we're going to dive into in this video. Now, before we jump in, I'm Brett. I'm an autistic ADHDer with over 15 years of leadership experience in various corporate settings. On this channel, I blend both my lived experience along with my leadership training to support neurodivergents at work. Remember to take what works and leave the rest. Let's get started. I'm actually going to start with the kind of best YouTuber out there, How to ADHD, Jessica McCabe, who just publishing this book, which is now out now. It's not a paid endorsement. It's just the best of the best out here in terms of task management, ADHD, and just how to get through strategies and understanding how our brains work. Jessica writes about how our brains require different forms of motivation. And sometimes we just need deadlines. Deadlines can sometimes trigger the adrenaline that we need to get things done. It might be nice to get that thing done before the deadline. And sometimes even for tasks we want to do, that may not always be enough. But when it's something new or a challenge or something exciting, we can dive in. Even if it's something that's a special interest that we even want to hyper-focus on, sometimes just doing those things, but especially when it's something we don't want to do, can feel like climbing a mountain. How do we hike up this mountain? How do we do this thing? How do we just get to it already? First, let's reset. Let's just take a breath and reset and figure out what's our why. What are we trying to do here? What is it that we want to do? Sometimes when we sit down to sort of look at everything, we can get really overwhelmed by both task, all the different steps involved. Maybe there's competition, maybe there's other people doing things. Sometimes those things can really overwhelm you and your mind can get flooded. So when that's happening, just take a breath. Take a step back from all of that. Try to turn your mind off when that stuff happens. And let's just focus on why we're doing this. What do we want to do? What is our intention? What's our why for doing this project? And let's remind ourselves what that spark of interest was. What was the interest that made us want to get into this in the first place? Can we find our way in again to what we want to do with this project? And it's not about comparing ourselves and our journey to others. It's about doing what we want to do, or at work, what we have to do. Now that we've figured out our why, because a lot of times the ADHD brain needs to have the why in order for us to complete the task or even start the task. Once we have our why, and maybe when we have the big picture of what we're looking for, let's now maybe break down that big picture and the why. Let's break that down into smaller steps. Let's get every little step. Now, in this process, it doesn't have to be the order in which we need to do the steps. We'll do that later. Let's just jot down, either type it out, write it down, whatever it is. Let your mind go wild. Think of it like a free write. Just jot down all the different tasks, all the different list items, all the different things that you need to do to get this project done. Take a moment and just write all that stuff down. Whatever it is, first thing that comes to mind, write it down. Sometimes when we're doing this, especially if we're feeling overwhelmed, sometimes it might help to sit with a boss or a thought partner or a colleague or a friend or just someone where we can talk through both the overwhelm, the frustration, but more importantly, talk through those different steps. If we can sit down with somebody and just sort of go through those steps, have them take notes while we just sort of verbally process that. For me, I'm a verbal processor. Something like that really helps me. That doesn't work for everybody. Some people can just monologue to themselves out loud and make that list, or sometimes people can just do that in their head. Again, find what works for you. Sometimes I just talk to my cat. Now that we've got the list, it doesn't matter what order the list is in. It doesn't matter what the list looks like. Just if we feel like we've captured everything, and we may not have, we might be stirred to remember something once we do the next part. That's okay. Now we're going to go through the list and we're going to prioritize. What has to be done first? What order do we want to put this list in? Or what are some of the smaller parts of the task that we could start now? They're just small little things we can cross off that list versus what are the bigger things now? However you want to organize that, prioritize it, put that together in a way that's going to help you move to the next phase of this. It's time. we have to take some action now. We're looking at our list. We're going to find our way in with maybe one or two of the smaller items. Maybe we take on a big thing to just get it out of the way. Whatever works for you, now is the time to start that thing. Now, a quick side note here. Sometimes just taking the action of organizing our thoughts, processing the overwhelm, getting everything fleshed out into a list, sometimes that alone you need a break from. And that's okay. Sometimes that much work requires a treat or reward, and maybe you should give that to yourself. Once you've accomplished that thing, great, we've worked through the overwhelm, we've figured out a to-do list, we've got our steps for us. Maybe that's enough for today. Maybe we start the list tomorrow. The trick is, though, we can't let go of getting the actual project done. Sometimes making the list can feel like a huge accomplishment that we don't come back and actually do the work. I wanted to start this YouTube channel years ago, but I got the idea for it, felt compelled that I was done, and then I let it go. So you still have to actually come back and do the thing. Jessica also writes in her book, and she talks about this on her YouTube channel, you need to find little rewards or just little ways to treat yourself. Again, this comes down to motivation. Measurable reward, something that is of the same size or value for whatever the task is that you're doing. Do a couple things on your list, you get a reward. Do some big things on your list, you get a bigger reward. One thing about our list, do we need to run it by anybody? Something to just keep in mind as we're going through the list. I want to dig back into body doubling. I was kind of mentioning this a second ago when bringing a thought partner, a friend, or a colleague in when you're feeling really overwhelmed. Sometimes we do body doubling even when we're not feeling overwhelmed. Sometimes having a body double there is just an accountability partner. That's somebody we can just talk to, maybe in a collaborative way. Maybe it's just somebody that we're talking to help us process, or maybe it's just somebody who's there on the other end to just sort of help partner us to get through doing the project. Like even right now, it took me a while to start this video, but I've got a friend online who has been pep talking me to get to this point while I am cheering him on while he's going through a project that he's doing on his end. So that's sort of one way to have an accountability partner. It's also a way to have sort of a body double. There's also a lot of Audi people and influencers and educators who will jump online and do live body doubling sessions on Instagram or YouTube or Discord, or something that I like to do often, write an email with Brett, where a colleague is coming in, they need that thing done, they need me to send that email to that person to sort of help out with that thing or word something a certain way. We'll sit together and I will audibly write that email while they're with me in that moment. That both holds me accountable to get it done. I get their feedback in real time. We think together as thought partners to make sure that the right words are chosen and said. But then at the end of this session, it's done. I send it off. They get what they need. I've accomplished my task, but I did that because they body doubled with me. I'm loosely using body doubling here in a little bit of a different way, but having that person there, even if it's somebody who can help you with that project, just to sort of take a break, bounce an idea off of them, can make a huge difference. And for me, I need to process with people, so that helps me. Now, here's another important thing. Take breaks, even if it's something that's a special interest. But if it's something you really don't want to do, find the reward, take the break, and sometimes that break can give you a fresh perspective. You might even be able to edit something that you just did with a different point of view. A few final thoughts. Sometimes when we're getting into the middle of a project, when that interest finally sparks and we get really deep in, sometimes it's helpful to set some timers. Maybe set a timer to pull yourself out of hyperfocus. Maybe set a timer for the deadlines that you have to meet. Maybe set a timer for just taking a break. One of the things about having an accountability partner, sometimes it's helpful to just make sure that your accountability partner is truly there to help you. You want to make sure that your accountability partner doesn't use any language that might accidentally set off some rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria. So if you do want an accountability partner, someone who's going to check in on you to just make sure you're doing the thing, you don't want them to make you feel guilty about it. So just make it clear to them what you're looking for in an accountability partner. Maybe go over just some type of language that you would feel comfortable with. I know when I'm an accountability partner for somebody else, if I ask the wrong question, sometimes they can feel a little defeated by that thing. And that's the opposite of what I want to do when I'm trying to help somebody. Likewise, I know that the wrong phrase can sort of put me in the wrong mindset, especially when I find my groove. So it's good to talk through accountability partner communication, especially if you're a boss talking to an employee or you're asking your boss to give you some of that feedback. And really, one of the last things we need to think about, sometimes our minds can have these little voices that creep up on us when we're struggling to do a project, or we're in the middle of the project, or we're starting the project. Sometimes those little voices tell us that it's not as good as so-and-so's, somebody else could be doing this better, why am I the one doing this? Any of these kind of things. It could be something you see on Instagram, it could be something you see on a different social network. You might feel bad about any number of things that our brains can make us feel bad about. But the important thing is to try to shut that down. One of the things in meditation, Dan Harris writes about this, is that it's recommended that when you start to hear that voice, just give it a name. Give it a name like Jeff and just say, okay, Jeff, I got it, noted. And then tell him to go take a seat. Just, yep, great, there it is. There's that thought. I'm noting it. Go take a seat. I'm going to focus on this. Just remember that it's your voice that matters. You're doing this thing. You're doing this project. There's probably a reason why you're the one that needs to do this. There's plenty of reasons why you're the only one that has this particular perspective that can do this particular project. Focus in on that. Trust yourself that you can do that thing. And don't let those other voices get in your head, or necessarily don't feel that competition. There's somebody somewhere out there who's also feeling that same thought and that same worry. And the person who had to get to this particular point that you might be jealous or concerned about or nervous about, they probably have struggled with some of this too. And they probably need to learn from somebody else. So don't let that get in your head. Try and tell yourself you can do this. Tell yourself you can do this. Say it out loud if you have to. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And we need you to do this. That's always the good thing. I'm Brett, the Audi Boss. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you liked anything that you've heard, please subscribe to this channel and leave me a comment down below if there's a topic that you'd like me to cover as the Audi Boss, strategies to help you at work, or if there's just a topic you want to learn more about, or if you have some tips even that have worked for you when trying to start a project or do the thing, share in the comments below so that other people can benefit from you. I hope this helps. Good luck with your project, and